You're listening to Taylor McKeown, member of the Australian Dolphins swim team, Olympic, Commonwealth and World Championship medalist. This is the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
Phelps with 10 meters left. 3 minutes too good. The crowd roaring. Freeman wins gold.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome back, or welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by the Gold Coast Marathon and Pogo Physio. I'm Brad Beer, sports and exercise physiotherapist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. The aim of this show is to educate and inspire you towards the pursuit of your own physical best performance. We do this through interviews featuring some of the world's top physical performers and also some of the world's preeminent experts in their chosen fields. Each week we'll bring you a variety of episodes, including expert editions, featured performer episodes, coach's corner, and interest editions. And on today's episode 154 of the Physical Performance Show, we return to a featured performer episode, and I share with you a conversation that I recently had with Australian swim team member Taylor McKeown. Taylor is an Olympic, World and Commonwealth Games medalist who lays claim to being Australia's premier female breaststroker, having medalled in the 200 metre breaststroke at the Australian Open Championships consecutively since 2011. Taylor is also highly competitive in the 100 metre breaststroke and 200 metre individual medley. Taylor picked up a silver medal in the 2016 Rio Olympic Games in the 4x100 metre medley, swimming the breaststroke leg alongside her Australian teammates, including Emily Seebohm, McKeon and Cate Campbell. In addition, Taylor has picked up a bronze medal in the 2015 World Swimming Championships, once again as a member of the 4x100 metre medley relay team. And Taylor picked up the gold in the 2014 Glasgow Commonwealth Games in the 200 metre breaststroke event. And on today's episode, Taylor shares around her swimming highs, lows, and learnings to date. There's some great takeaways in this episode, and Taylor shares around what it means to be digging deep in recent times with her swimming as she heads towards Tokyo 2020 for her father, Sholto, who in late 2018 was diagnosed with brain cancer. Here is my conversation with Australian swim team member, World, Commonwealth and Olympic medalist Taylor McKeown. Taylor McKeown, this is a real buzz to have you in person here today to record today's episode. And you've got a lot on. You're in the middle of a big preparation block, getting ready for Australian Championships and then also World Championship trials. So welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you so much.
Taylor, we always start with something a little bit fun, and that is, what's one thing that Taylor McKeown is learning at the moment?
Pool-wise, I'm brushing up on my dives. So I've had a fresh perspective from some of the coaches down here on the Gold Coast, and I've also just learnt to do the suicide turn from my back to my breaststroke leg. Brand new, never tried it before. And
so for the uninitiated, describe the suicide turn.
So it's called the suicide turn because it's the easiest turn to do to get disqualified in. It's actually quicker to perform it in a back to breaststroke turn rather than just touching the wall and flipping. So you kind of roll over onto your side, which can borderline get you disqualified, and then you flip from there. So it's very hard to explain without me having a video to show you, but if you do it wrong, you'll get disqualified. So although it's quicker, it comes with a risk.
I think we need a video for the show notes.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, that's what I've learned this week.
So the suicide dive is now part of your repertoire, and then you set a focus on dives since you've been training on the Gold Coast. Is that Is that right?
Yeah, so initiating my arms a lot more in my dive now, creating a bit more power, which is exciting because I've started noticing I'm hitting the water faster with more speed, and that's carrying on through to my 15-metre time. So, yeah, definitely working a lot on the small stuff at the moment.
And can you be specific on a small stuff example? Like, what are the cues you're using?
We're talking 0.1 of a second quicker through to 15 metres, but if that's what it's going to take between first and second, then I'm happy to take the extra steps now to improve that. And yeah, so it's basically just like me diving off the block, making sure I'm pushing back on the block with my arms rather than just throwing them forward, which is what I used to do. So little skills like that, which can make an overall quite a greater difference.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's fingernail stuff
it is,
in the major championships.
Yeah.
And talking about major championships, Taylor, your career to date is very well decorated, and there's a ways to go yet, so we haven't seen your best yet. International medals, Rio Olympic Games 2016, part of the 4x100 metre medley team swimming the breaststroke leg. World Championships 2015, Kazan, once again swimming the breaststroke leg in the 4x100 medley. Budapest 2017, same thing. Multiple Australian titles, I believe, for according to my research. You have not missed a national medal in the 200 metre breaststroke since 2011.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
So that's quite a streak.
It is, yeah.
And, you've been described as Australia's premier female breaststroker, which is, I think, a deserving accolade or title. So, Taylor, take us back to before all the medals. Where did this journey start for you, and how did you find your way into competitive swimming?
So when I was younger, my family grew up having a backyard pool, so I was always in the water, absolutely loved it. Developed quite a natural liking for the water, I guess, and went through school and primary school swimming carnivals, all that sort of stuff. And I remember it was about grade 3, we were all doing kind of learn to swim through school, and they were grouping us by our ability, and I thought for sure, like, I'm going to be in the top group. I've always been super competitive, and I wasn't. I got put in the second top group, and all of my friends that I was in school with were in the top group. And I was like, man, this isn't fair. So I worked hard through school swimming to eventually get put in that top group, and one of my friends who was in that top group through school swimming was telling me that she does swimming outside of school, and I thought that was pretty cool, something I would like to get into. So I went home to mum and asked if I can join a swim club. So, my parents have always been super supportive. Without a doubt, she just signed me up to our local swim club that girl was also swimming at. And yeah, I started off in the mini squad at about 9 years of age, went through, and I was doing junior swimming, which is just once or twice a week for like a couple of years. And then started doing carnivals here, there and everywhere. So started to progress through racing quite naturally, and then it wasn't until I was like 12 or 13 and the coach kind of said to me, you're plodding through, just doing what you want at the moment. And it was true. I would rock up to training and I would go missing for a couple of weeks, and then I'd come back and I was there all of a sudden, because I used to like doing other things outside of training, like just hanging around with my friends that lived down the road and stuff. So I was always making excuses not to go, and then he kind of pulled me aside and said, if you want to improve, you're going to have to commit to training more, stop mucking around, start committing. And so I did. It was about that stage that I dropped out of playing softball, and previous to that I dropped out of playing tennis. So it was full steam ahead, everything was put into swimming from that moment on. And as a 13-year-old, I remember the first medal I was quite impressed with was, we did Queensland Sprint Championships, and I got third in the 50 metre breaststroke with a PB time. And I was like, wow, I just won a Queensland level medal. Like, that was pretty awesome, and I was 13 years old. From that moment on, the next goal was starting to try and get qualifying times for Australian age nationals. So we were going to competitions every weekend, all over the place, just trying to hit times. Fortunately, I didn't hit any age national times until I was 14, and I only hit it in one event, the 100 metre breaststroke. And that's kind of when I decided, or like I knew that I should start training breaststroke more to improve in the events that I was qualifying in. So prior to that, I was racing every event possible, just really broadening my horizon, I guess. And then, so me and my family packed up the car, we drove down to Sydney, got there a couple of days early and got a feel for the pool and racing, because racing in Sydney Olympic pool is quite a thrill as a 14-year-old girl. You're like, wow, there's been so many legends here before me, and all of a sudden I'm here racing in this pool. Like, it was very nerve-wracking, and it was my first Australian age nationals, and I was just blown away by, gosh, like all of the competitors, how many clubs were there. So yeah, I got there, did my 100 metre breaststroke, didn't PB, I finished 17th, so no final for me, and that was it. Short and sweet, that was my first Australian age nationals. Went down there for one day, did one race, and turned around and went home. So my family was kind of like, oh, well, that's it. Yep, we're done.
And you went home to Redcliffe, is that right? Or at that point?
I was living in Caboolture at that point.
Caboolture,
So grew up, did schooling in Caboolture. I was just born in Redcliffe. I don't know why everyone thinks I lived in Redcliffe. I was just born there in the hospital.
Maybe it's a statue in town.
And then grew up in Caboolture, did schooling there, and so the following year, made sure I was going to be, I guess, more prepared for my second Australian age group nationals.
So 15 years of age by now.
15, yep. Training had gone full steam ahead from that point on. My coach was really pushing me, and I was really stepping up to the challenges. I knew I was ready to go, so yeah, I went back for my second Australian age nationals, and I ended up qualifying first in most of my events into the final, and came away with 2 gold medals in both the 100 and 200 metre breaststroke, and then a bronze in the 200 medley. And for me, that was a real turning point in my swimming career, because the year prior, my training had been a bit all over the place, came 17th, and then within a year, I committed to the training, I did what I was told, I really bought into the program, and the following year had such a massive improvement, 3 medals from none the year before, and everyone was kind of like, who's this girl, where has she come from? And I guess that really cemented my way for like the path that my swimming career has taken now. I loved the idea of training hard and winning medals, and even just training hard and getting to go to the competitions is quite fun and enjoyable. So it was really rewarding. And yeah, I guess from then I kind of just went on through the age group national years up until I was 18, and I could no longer compete in the age group nationals. Won multiple age titles across all different events, 200 medley, 400 medley, all the breaststrokes even. Until 2012 brought around the opportunity for me to qualify for the London Olympics. This was only my second ever Open Nationals, and it was down in Adelaide. We've got quite a bit of family in Adelaide, so they were all rallied around to watch me at my second ever Open Nationals. It was very exciting. I didn't make the 100 breaststroke final, but I did make the 200 breaststroke final, and I think from memory I was like 4th qualified into the 200 breaststroke. In that race with me was my idol growing up, Liesl Jones. So I was just absolutely starstruck that I was racing against Liesl, someone who had had just such a stellar career, and that was awesome enough being in that final with her. Dove in, did the race, swam a PB, and I finished 3rd. But little did I know, I missed the London Olympic qualifying time by 0.01. So I was super close, just missed out. But at the same time, I ended up beating Liesl. She got 4th and I got 3rd. So
beat your idol.
Yeah, within this whole race, I'd got my first ever Australian Open national medal, beaten Liesl, and come pretty close to qualifying for the London Olympics.
Pretty close, 0.001. Yeah. And you were how old at this stage?
I would have been 17. Just turned 17. Year 12. So, gosh, I was 16 even then. So yeah, I was close. Still very immature for my age, I think. Looking back in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't go because I wouldn't have been prepared for the Olympics. Instead, I went and did Junior Pan Packs over in Hawaii, which was a much more relaxed, fun kind of team environment, which I think really set me up for, I guess, better swimming later on in life. And then, so did another year of just Open Nationals. 2013, I didn't make the team then. But come around to 2014, I was very prepared. During the 2013 season, I finished, I think, the time I did at the US Open that I competed in would have got me 3rd at the World Championships if I had gone. So comparatively, I was right there, I was ready. I just didn't make the team that year, unfortunately. 2014 rolled around and I knew I was training well, I was fast, and went to Australian Nationals, made my first Australian team for the Toronto breaststroke for the Commonwealth Games over in Glasgow. And the time I did at Nationals was the fastest heading into the Games across everyone that we were competing against. So going in, I knew I had a good chance. I knew that my times were right there, and my coach decided to take us away on a training camp for about 2 months. So we trained in Spain before heading to Glasgow and meeting up with the rest of the team in Manchester, which was pretty scary for me. And that was my first time with a long time overseas away from my family and from my partner at the time and stuff. So that was a bit nerve-wracking. And I got a little bit homesick, but kept my eyes on the prize and pushed through. And finally, the Commonwealth Games rolled around and I was so ready to race. Put myself in the 200 breaststroke final and ended up winning that one with my teammate Sally Hunter getting second, which was awesome to have 2 Australians on the podium. And yeah, I did that in a very solid time. So my family were all very excited because they were there to celebrate it. So yeah, it was just awesome receiving that medal at the end, looking up, seeing my family right there in the grandstand cheering for me, and of course all the other Australians who were up there as well. And that for me is still probably one of my favourite swimming memories because I was so young. I just turned 18, first Australian team, and I was so proud of myself. Looking back, I just stuck to my race plan perfectly and executed the race really well and came back with a really good result. So I guess I kind of like put myself in the Australian team in a big way, and then continued to perform throughout the years after that. And you know what you were reading out before, all of the competitions I've done in between,
Olympics and
Olympics and all that sort of stuff. And and of course 2016 rolled around and that was my opportunity to make the team again. Fortunately this time I did it in both the 100 and 200 breaststroke. That was awesome. I was very relieved once I qualified in that 100 breaststroke because it meant the weight was off my shoulders for the 200, which I was about to qualify for, and later in the week, and I'd finally made my first Olympic team. Been training extremely hard up until that point. I knew physically I was ready to go. Been working a bit with the sports psychologist as well to get my mind around what the Olympics might be like pressure-wise. Just trying to figure out some coping strategies because I tend to give in really easily to pressure and can, I guess, choke in races under pressure a little bit. So yeah, was doing everything possible leading in to make sure that I was ready to go. Got to the Olympics and had a fairly good 100 metre breaststroke heat swim. Made it into the semi-final and I ended up gaining selection for the relay spot based on those 2 swims because I was faster than the other Australian competitor that was there for the 100 metre breaststroke. And then of course the 200 breaststroke rolled around. And again, very solid heat swim, put myself in the semi-final. And I was lane 5 in the second semi-final. So, all eyes are on you. And I just remember feeling so comfortable and so relaxed in that semi-final. I didn't feel an ounce of pressure at all. And I just knew that I had what it takes to make the final. So I was feeling really positive about myself and dove in, executed a really great race plan. I actually backed off in the last 25 metres of that 200 breaststroke because I was so far ahead. I had energy to save, and I thought, while I was doing the race, I was like, I'll back off here and I'll save a little bit for the final. And I still ended up touching first in my second semi-final, and when they reshuffled, my time came up first overall as well. And I was kind of like, holy crap, I've just qualified fastest for an Olympic final. Like, how does this happen? I was so blown away. And if you know how the structure of swimming works, you know that there's 24 hours in between the semi-final and the final. And that 24 hours honestly killed me. The entire time, I really didn't have that much sleep. Spent a lot of the time stressing about the race that was about to come up. I didn't eat a lot either, which isn't good. But I just felt like I was constantly on this big adrenaline rush. And I remember rolling up to the pool to warm up for that 200 breaststroke final. And I just did things unnaturally weird that I wouldn't normally do. Like I spent longer doing dry land. I got in the pool earlier. I did more explosive work in my warm up than I normally would because I was so, I guess, over-focused on how I was feeling during that time because I wanted to create the perfect feel for that perfect race. And I was a little bit stressed that I didn't warm up and I didn't hit times in warm up that I wanted, and I didn't feel as energized in that warm up as I did for the semi-final. So alarm bell started to ring before I even got to the marshalling room. Went into the marshalling room and I was the first one in there. And I thought, wow, like I'm really early. I don't normally turn up this early for the marshalling room. And I guess from there I started to see my competitors roll in. I started to get a little bit more nervous. But I was racing people like the world record holder, Yulia Efimova, one of the Russian drug cheats, Chinese swimmers, and of course the 2 girls from the UK who were both very fast as well. So a lot of big names in that final. And being lane 4, I was the last to walk out. So I was the last to be introduced. I just remember the crowd being very, very loud, and it pumped me up a little bit, but at the same time I kind of like lost a bit of focus on what I was doing, what I was there for, and in my mind I was just win, like that's what I wanted to do. Got up and dove in, had a really great start, and I've just blitzed the first 100 meters. And basically I don't really like racing 200 breaststroke that way. I'm quite even over my 50 meter splits, but I've absolutely just gunned the first 100 and died basically in the second 100. Hit the wall at about 125 meters, and I just remember seeing the girls either side of me kind of push past, and the pain got more and more severe. And in my head I was ready to give up at like 75 meters to go, and turned off the wall going into the last 50, and I kind of looked across the lanes and saw that I was still in a relatively good position. I think I was sitting about second or third at that point. Looking that way, I had no idea what was going on behind me. And yeah, tried to hold on to my stroke best I could coming down the last 50, and just ended up touching fifth. Like while the placing was still quite close, it was only 0.2 between second and fifth, I think. So I was there, I just didn't get on the wall fast enough and didn't really execute my race that well either. So my world came crashing down at that point. I was like, man, I'm fifth, I went in first. My time was slower than what I'd done in the semi-final. If I'd done my semi-final time, I would have been up there on the podium. Yeah. So it was really at that point I realised that I stuffed up big time. And I was pretty close to tears in my post-race interview, composed myself. But as soon as I left the camera, went out the back, I was just an emotional wreck, because you put so much into that. And I missed out 4 years ago, and then here I am with my opportunity to do well in the 200 breaststroke, and I stuffed it up. So that was very upsetting. I went out, saw my coach, and he was like, don't be upset about it. I'm proud of you for getting to where you're at. Like, being an Olympic final is hard enough to make, let alone placing fifth in one. And I said, yeah, you're right. And he just kept reminding me that I had the relay the next day. You can't dwell on this race. You've got to get up and you have to swim for Australia tomorrow. So you really need to put this in a box and shove it aside and think about the next challenge. And that was hard. I got in, did my swim down, tried to create a better feeling within myself during that time, and then went upstairs and saw my family in the grandstand and I just lost it again. I was so emotional, and because they know what I'd been through in the last 4 years of commitment and making sure I was ready to go for this Olympics. So there was a lot on the line in that race, but they were very supportive and reminded me again that I had the relay the next day and that I needed to be in bed on time, have a good dinner. So I did that, and I just remember the next day. So I was the only person in the relay that did both the heat swim and the final swim. So there was a lot of fatigue built up over that 24-hour period leading into that medley relay final. And I was in there with girls who didn't really have the week they expected. Emily Seebohm, amazing athlete, probably could have achieved better than what she did at that Olympics. She was quite down on herself. Myself didn't have a great race the night before. Emma McKeon, she swam quite good in the 200 freestyle, but again was disappointed in her fly. And of course, Cate Campbell, our anchor, I think everyone kind of knows what happened with her and in her 100 meter freestyle. So collectively as a team across our individual races, none of us were that happy. And I remember Emily turning to us and just saying, like, look, we've had a shit week basically. This is the last race of the Olympics. Let's turn it around. Let's have fun. Who cares what the result is? We're swimming out of lane 2. There's no pressure on us. Let's just go out there, have fun. We'll wave to the crowd. We'll muck around a bit, and we'll just lighten our spirits. And whatever happens, happens. Just go out there and smash it. And I thought, what the heck? That's what we did. So we walked out. We linked arms. We were so happy to be there. I was turning around, and for once I was like actually trying to spot my family in the crowd and wave to them, and I was just like, oh hey, like I'm an Olympic relay team. And yeah, it was awesome. We all dove in, put in a solid effort. Everyone had a great leg, super safe changeovers. They were fast. We were pretty much on point as an Australian relay team. And of course came down to Cate in the last 50 meters freestyle, and she steamed home, absolutely rolled everybody, and we touched second. Beat Denmark to second place by 0.01. So I was like, well, that's my redemption.
That's your redemption, exactly.
I was like, sucked in Denmark.
Hello, all you Danish listeners.
Yeah. I was like, woo, we got second at the Olympics. Like, finally, something good has happened. And that was it. I was stoked. I'd got my Olympic medal. I was on that podium with an amazing team. Had a great relay split. And, yeah, basically got to go out and party after that. So that really topped off my Olympic experience, and that was just fantastic. So yeah, 2016 Olympics, I
Would rate as your career
Learned a lot
highlight.
and had fun, and I definitely want to do it again, 100%. So
you're looking ahead, Tokyo 2020.
Tokyo for sure is on the cards. Everything I'm doing in the pool now is best aimed at creating a journey towards Tokyo. So making the world's team this year, swimming well at nationals, losing the last 4 kilos I've got to go, everything like that is going to put me in place again for Tokyo. And you know, I've experienced the Olympics now. I know what the pressure's going to be like. I know what the racing's like. This time, hopefully, I'm more prepared, and hopefully we can look for some better results.
And so really that encompasses the theme of the show, the highs, the lows, and the learnings that you take normally from the lows on reflection.
Sure.
So thank you for sharing some of that detail. Taylor, a couple of things jumped out. You said that you love the idea of training hard.
Yes.
And it's fair to assume that you don't make Olympic finals or win Olympic medals unless there's a love of pushing yourself physically. But where do you think that drive comes from for you, Taylor?
I guess because I've always been quite naturally competitive, and you can ask my best friend, I'm competitive with everything. Like, if it's a race to get in the front door, I'm down. If it's a race to scully drink, I'm down. If it's anything, honestly, we used to play SingStar a lot growing up, and I hated losing on SingStar. Like, just little things like that. I've just always found fun in being competitive, and I think it's that natural drive within me that really pushes me in training. I love racing my training partners, and I love trying to get the best out of myself, and I'm not afraid of the pain. So I will go until I physically can't leave the pool, until the lactate has left my body. So I will push myself until I nearly pass out at the end of sessions. But looking back, it just builds me into a better athlete, I think, both physically and mentally, because you have to be mentally tough to be able to push yourself physically. Yep. So I like creating these situations within training that are going to reflect on the way I can race. So if I'm mentally tough and physically tough through training, then I can race that way. And you'll hear hundreds of coaches say you always race the way you train. So if you turn up to training and you don't put in the effort and you kind of do it to whatever your comfort level is, that's how you're going to race. You can't expect the best results if you're not pushing yourself as far as you can in training. And that includes everything. That includes little skills that might not necessarily require you to be physically exhausted, but require detail and attention. So
would you ever cut a warm down short?
For the right reason?
For the right
Most
reason.
of the time, no.
Yeah.
I guess the only reason I would cut a warm down short is to get out and foam roll or trigger something. Exactly. Yeah. Just anything that's required, but no, not normally. And
that wasn't a question to put you on the spot. It was more of a question of an insight, I guess, into, it strikes me that you're the sort of person that if it's a 400 warm down, then it's a 400 warm down getting done, unless there's, a reason to get out sooner.
Yeah,
Taylor, something else that you shared, which I thought was so interesting, was when you shifted from a casual 12 to 13-year-old, a couple of sessions a week, find any reason to not be in the pool, to a committed 14, 15-year-old, you said that you really bought into the program.
Yes.
So what do you mean by that, you bought into the program?
I guess before that, I didn't really understand why I was being made to train as much as what the coaches wanted me to, and I kind of liked the idea of being able to do whatever I wanted and kind of just enjoying the pool when I felt like it, like I had my entire life. But then my coach kind of said, you have to be in this. If you're not 100% in this, then you're wasting everybody's time. So I listened to what he said. I believed in him and started training more, started doing gym, all of the things that I had to do outside of training to be the best athlete. So that's what I mean by I bought into the program. I really committed myself to that.
And you believe that there would be an outcome?
Yeah, for sure.
And
to that belief. Yeah.
There's a guest, a prior guest to the show who wrote a best-selling book called How Bad Do You Want It? And one of the takeaways is belief in training is as important as the training itself.
Yeah.
You're listening to Taylor McKeown, Australian swim team member, sharing around the highs, lows, and learnings of her swimming career to date. Support for today's show comes from the Gold Coast Marathon. Just like the Physical Performance Show, the Gold Coast Marathon encourages runners of all ages and abilities to push their boundaries and strive to complete a personal challenge. The Gold Coast Marathon is held annually on the first weekend in July and is a must-do event for any budding athlete, weekend warrior, or family looking for a challenge to complete together. Run for the good times at the Gold Coast Marathon. Visit goldcoastmarathon.com.au. I caught up recently with Cam Hart, race director of the Gold Coast Marathon, where he shared around something special that happened in the 2018 edition of the Gold Coast Marathon.
Yeah, after 40 years of delivering the event, we had the very first time the full marathon had sold out. And for an event on the Gold Coast, for an event in Australia, where the home population isn't very big, selling out at 6,700 race entries was a very important milestone for us. The downside of that is there were some disappointed athletes who actually missed out on the opportunity to compete. So as we move forward, we certainly encourage every serious competitor, don't delay. The fear of missing out is a real thing, and unfortunately, by the nature of the course that we have and the confines of the start and finish areas, there must be a capacity, so it really is first served, first in.
Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to complete their rehabilitation, get back to their physical best, and in doing so, cross their physio finish line. We do not want to see you for a single session more than what you need or a single session less than what you need to get you across your physio finish line. We just want to ensure that you get there and get back to doing the things that you love as soon as possible. We do this through traditional pay-as-you-go appointments, but also some of our industry first and very popular fixed fee service offerings, including our monthly wellness booster packs, which contain hands-on physiotherapy, remedial massage therapy, and exercise rehabilitation services from very low monthly fixed fees, all health fund rebatable. To find out more about Pogo Physio's services or to schedule your 1 hour initial comprehensive appointment, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back to Taylor McKeown, Olympic, World and Commonwealth Games medalist, sharing around her highs, lows and learnings of her swimming career to date. Taylor, what does the current training week look like for you at the moment? You're on the eve of a national breaststroke camp.
Yep.
But what does a typical week look like for Taylor McKeown?
I guess the phase of training I'm in at the moment isn't my typical training week because I've got a bit of weight to lose, so I am doing a lot at the moment. I'm training mostly triple sessions every day. So my Monday, swim, gym, swim, and then 30 minutes of core and dryland at the end. And my Tuesday is 30 minutes on the spin bike, swimming, and then swimming in the afternoon, and then again another core workout at the end. My Wednesday is my recovery day, so it's just swim and gym Wednesday, and then Thursday is the same as Tuesday, and Friday is another recovery day, so swim and gym on Friday. So within Monday to Saturday, I'm fitting in 9 swims, 3 gyms, 3 spins on the bike, and 3 30-minute dry land, med ball, TheraBand, that kind of stuff. So yeah, quite loaded at the moment.
Big week.
Yeah, but I am finally starting to see results. Like I've lost 4.5 kilos and put on nearly 800 grams of muscle mass within the short time that I've been training with Michael Bowl. And yeah, I've just got pretty much 4 kilos to go till I'm at a good race weight. So getting there, definitely getting there.
And is that attaining race weight something that over the years you fluctuate around and then you get ready for a
Yeah,
major
you
meet
kind of notice that coming into a competition you'll be super lean, super fit, ready to go, and then after you have time off, and of course everyone will blow out in the time that they're not really doing anything. So we've kind of looked at the graphing and looked at the pattern, worked out that I'm racing my fastest when I'm at my leanest, and I think that goes for most athletes pretty much. So yeah, we're making sure now that I'm getting really cut and ready to race for the season.
Taylor, let's do a performance round. Are you ready? You can chalk this up as your 4th session for the day.
Oh, easy.
Training session you most love.
Recovery. I think everyone does.
And what would a recovery session look like for you?
Oh, it's just 4 kilometers, easy swim through, some light aerobic stuff. Nothing that's going to get the heart rate too high, and no distances that are super overwhelming. So I think the longest we'll go at once in a recovery session is 1,500 meters, and then we'll stop.
Taylor, training session you most dislike?
I definitely hate it when we do a lot of maximum effort short rest breaststroke. Breaststroke's the most inefficient stroke. You're pushing a lot of water, and I think, in my opinion, creates the biggest burn. So it's super hard when we're doing that on the same time cycle as the freestylers, but obviously getting a lot less rest. So I really hate those sessions because I feel like I'm getting ripped off, and I feel like the breaststroke is just killing me. But you know, it's all good. We get through it. We live.
It's that love of the pain and the hard training. Favourite pre-race meal? What fuels Taylor McKeown on race day?
In the morning, I love having Wheat Bix before I race, and I love tea. So I'll literally, before I rock up for a heat swim, I'll have Wheat Bix and a cup of tea. And usually before I go back for finals, I might have something a bit more substantial. So peanut butter on toast. And, you know, I'll have a better, well-prepared lunch, something cooked, something high in protein, something high in carb. It just varies. And I'm not a super fussy eater, but I'm a vegetarian. So always trying to find those super healthy, super high carb sources. Anything that's going to best set me up for racing well.
Bedtime, morning time, what does that look like for you at the moment? Are you quite structured around that?
Usually I'm in bed around 9:30 and kind of fall asleep by 10 after I've read a few emails, done a bit of work on my computer or whatever. And then I'm usually up around 4:45 to 5 o'clock the next day, depending on what I've got on.
For training with Griffith University, Michael Bowles squad, what time do you guys start?
We have to be on pool deck by 6, and we do half an hour of dry land, and then we're in the water at 6:30. But lately I've been rocking up to the pool at 5:30 to do my 30 minutes of bike before I join in for the dry land.
Hence that extra session. Who is the athlete Taylor McKeown most admires and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh man. This is gonna sound so cliche, but I really do admire my sister because in the short time that I got to train with her, I think I trained with Kaylee for like a year and a half before I split. And during that time, I just saw her develop it. She's an animal. She's an absolute animal. I see myself in her in the way that we're both not afraid of pain. We're both not afraid to commit to what we're told to do in training. And we're both not afraid to do extra. Kaylee, you know, if she has a session where she doesn't hit the time she wants, she'll get up and she'll do 100 max at the end of the session to kind of give her the opportunity to redeem herself after a bad session. And I think it's things like that we both do, we both have done in the past, which I think you can get up on the blocks and look back on and think, you know, I've done the extras, like I'm here in this race, I deserve to swim well, I'm gonna swim well. And I really admire, and because she's so young as well, like she's only just 17 now, and you know, when I was training with her, she was 15, 16, so from such a young age, she's really put strides in to be the athlete she is now. And so I really admire Kaylee for, I guess, rising to the McKeown swimming stature.
That's great. Toughest competitor you've ever raced? Who's that and why?
Man. Again, also probably my sister. The only time we really do get to race each other is in the 200 and 400 medley, because we both swim different events. But she's just so tough. She gets up there, and no matter how fatigued she is, no matter what race it is, she'll just throw herself at the wall and do whatever it takes to swim fast. And, you know, she doesn't seem to be fazed by anything, Kaylee. She could be at a World Championships, her first World Championships, and swim well, swim a PB, and just be so unfazed by it. She's so unfazed by the stress of racing. She's so unfazed by the pressures. She just is really good at sticking to her race plan and doing her own thing, which I think shows a lot of maturity, especially given how young she is.
And potentially she's gleaned some of those learnings through looking at her big sister.
Yeah, well, she says so, but I don't actually know how much she's learned from me.
Is there a mantra, Taylor, that you use when you're racing or you're in one of those grueling training sessions? Is there some regular self-talk that you'll have? Any favourite sayings?
Yeah, definitely. One I came up with myself is when I'm really hurting in a training session and I think like this is the end of me, I'm about to hit the wall, I'm about to sting out or whatever, I think, what would the best in the world do in my situation? Would the best in the world quit and kind of let the pain take over or lose focus of what they're doing? Or would the best in the world continue to push through and strive to be a better version of themselves? And if I'm not doing what I think the best in the world would be doing, then there's no point in me doing it. So
powerful.
That's basically how I structure myself around training.
It's very powerful. Best recovery tip, Taylor? What's that?
Sleep. I love my naps. Had a little nap before coming in here today for about an hour and a half. And feel 100%. So I would 100% recommend napping. I will nap between heats and finals at all major meets, always. If it's on the bus, if it's in a car, it doesn't matter where I am, I always try and fit in a nap. So napping is the way to go.
And we have had a former expert on the show, a well-credentialed sleep physician from Melbourne, who shared the best tip is to cultivate your napping habits. So well done, you're on track. One word to describe your racing style. Taylor?
I would say relentless. If you've looked at the way I've raced my heats, my semi-finals, my finals, is I attack everyone with intent and with skill and with emphasis. You see some swimmers who know that they're easily going to make the final at like an Australian Nationals or whatever, so they will go 50% in a heat and save themselves for the final. Personally, I don't really see the point in doing that because you're not going to improve as an athlete, and then when you go to those major meets, you can't get away with doing that because if you slow down, you'll miss out. So I like to structure everything I do around racing to, improve myself in many ways.
Relentless.
Yeah.
How would you describe being in the zone, Taylor?
It's an adrenaline rush. Being in the zone is you feel the shakes a little bit, you feel energized, you feel ready to go, and you're very alert. So you hear everything, and I love the feeling of when I'm behind the blocks and I get up there and I can actually take in the atmosphere of the crowd and you can hear it, and it just really pumps you up, and that's to me is in the zone.
When was the last time you were in the zone?
When we had to do the 4x200s breaststroke step test last week in training. Coming into the last 200, I was extremely fatigued. I was so tired, but I remembered that this was essentially a race, a 200 breaststroke in training, and I put myself in the zone. I was very focused on my race plan for that last 200 breaststroke and pushed the pain aside and just committed to the race. And for me, I think I recreated that in training.
What's the hardest final session in the performance round? What's the hardest session you've ever done?
One that always sticks in my mind is the 2050s max effort set we do. So you might start off, they're all absolutely maxed out, and the idea of the set is that you see where you die. So you go as long as you can, and wherever you die is where you die. So you start off, and the first 4 might be like a longer rest period, and then the next 4 are shorter, until you get to the last 4, which are on 10 seconds rest. So you're doing breaststroke, you touch the wall, you turn around, and you set yourself up ready to push off again, and the coach says go. So the rest is very small, and I've never not made it through to all 20, which is good. But there's certainly been sessions where I've done that test set where I've dropped off in the last 4 and blown out by a couple of seconds per 50. But it's all part of the fun of it. And you finish, and most of the time you have peak blood lactate. But again, that's designed at creating, muscle fatigue within yourself and creating a feel of how it's going to be when you race. So if you can train well under fatigue, then you should be able to race well under fatigue.
And there's that statement again, you're going to race how you train.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're listening to Taylor McKeown, Australian swim team member, sharing around her highs, lows and learnings of her swimming career to date. If you missed last week's episode, then you missed an expert edition that has been heavily requested, featuring Paul Griffin and Simon Bartold of Bartold Clinical, sharing around all things the modern day running shoe. This really was a deep dive into all things you'd ever want to know about running athletic footwear. Here's a little snippet of what you missed.
The research tells us that as you increase the cushioning in a shoe, you do not decrease the peak impact loads. The assumption is that as you increase cushioning, you're going to reduce impact. That's simply not true, and we've got good evidence for that.
To tune into the full episode 153, be sure to jump back from wherever you enjoy the podcast and peruse the show archives, dating right back to surf lifesaving Ironman champion Ali Day on episode 1. For now, let's jump back in the water with Taylor McKeown, this week's featured performer, sharing around her highs, lows and learnings of her swimming career. Taylor, your genes.
Yes.
It's a fun question. That's a bit of a theme for you as well that's come up. Fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Where do you reckon your family genes come from? Your swimming genes. You used the term before, the McKeown swimming stature.
Yes. Well, I created that because I was the first one in my family to get into swimming, I guess. My grandfather will tell you that it came from him, but we don't buy it. He used to say, like, he would swim around the islands of Townsville and stuff, and I was like, yeah, but you're not swimming to the level Kaylee and I are at. My parents were both very sporty. Mum did softball, Dad did cricket, so sport has always been in our family. And I guess me and Kaylee just kind of took the path towards swimming and created it ourselves, I guess.
Bought into the training.
We did.
Bought into the program,
really
and years later, look at the results.
Yeah.
And your father, you mentioned, your dad there. Your dad's had, your family's received some tough news last year, and you guys are working through a fair journey with your dad's health.
Yeah.
How's that going for the family, and how's that play out day to day for you, Taylor, as you look towards 2020?
2018, I guess, was probably one of the worst years of my life and of my family's lives. We kicked it off. We started 2018, and my grandfather, so my dad's dad, passed away while we were at Australian Nationals. So Kaylee and I, we raced our 400 medley, which was one of the last events. We got out. It actually was the last event. Because I remember we got out and one of the team managers kind of found us and pushed us into a back room, and my mum was there, and I was like, oh, what the heck? Mum, how did you get out on pool deck? And I was like very surprised to see her. And then they just said, look, we've got to tell you some news. Joe's passed away. And I was like, oh man, like this is awful. And that was really hard because from then we had to go back out into the team environment, put our team uniform on and walk in front of the TV to be selected on the Commonwealth Games team. So that night was a real roller coaster of emotion for us. And that sucked, attended the funeral, all that. Did Commonwealth Games, didn't race that well. My sister did pretty well, but for me, I swam shocking. And then we finished the Commonwealth Games and we pretty much get told that a couple of weeks later, the head coach of the para team at USC had passed away, Jan Cameron. So that was another big blow. Within that 2-month period, we also lost another close family friend. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like what next? And I thought surely that was it. That was it for 2018. We'd just been served 3 bad dishes. And I was like, there's no more that can possibly happen. And then, a month later, Dad started getting really bad headaches and couldn't actually get on the plane to go back to work because his head felt like, in his words, was exploding. So he went and got that all checked out and got diagnosed with brain cancer. He had a stage 4 glioblastoma. And if you're unfamiliar with cancer, stage 4 is the most severe and a glioblastoma is the most aggressive form. So when I got the original diagnosis, I was like, man, I don't know what any of these terms are. We'd never had a history of cancer like that in the family before. So I really didn't know anything. I jumped straight on my laptop and I was researching as much as I could to work out what all of these terms meant in the diagnosis. And basically I saw that, it was going to be a tough fight from here for Dad. So I was like, well, shit, what do we do now? Within 4 days of diagnosis, he was having brain surgery to remove the mass of the tumour. But with the glioblastoma tumours, they have essentially like roots that will attach itself to healthy brain tissue. And it's obviously those parts they can't remove through surgery. So that was really targeted later with radiation treatments and chemo. Dad finished his radiation months later, and now he's just on chemo. So he's basically doing everything he can outside of the traditional treatments also. So he's juicing, he's keeping his vitamins up, he's exercising, he's staying like mentally switched on. Basically just trying to live a normal routine, doing everything he can to complement the chemo that is still currently going on. But he's made some really good strides. He went back for a reanalysis which said the mass of the tumour had shrunk a little bit. And now, just come last week, he started going back to work. So now he's doing 4 days on, 4 days off. So he's got that good recovery time after a couple of days of work. And while he's at work, he's not really pushed too hard either. He can kind of plod along and do what he feels like he can here and there, just so he's not overly fatiguing himself, because you can feel quite fatigued on chemo. But yeah, he's really happy now that he can feel normal again and go into a normal routine, but also keep up with the medication. So he's not in remission yet, but hopefully one day we'll see that come.
Yeah, and I mean, that must be some level of drive for you every day, getting in the pool and looking ahead to make, make the days count.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my family all came to my first Commonwealth Games. They came to my first Olympics. So they would really love to all travel again next year for Tokyo to see Kaylee at her first Olympics too. So I think that's a major goal for my family, to have Dad well enough to be able to travel to Tokyo for that Olympics.
Brilliant. Taylor, if you could boil everything you've learnt through your swimming career to date, which has still got ways to go, but into one piece of advice for listeners of the show who are out there looking to pursue and perform at their own physical best across a range of endeavours, what would Taylor McKeown's piece of advice be?
Whatever you do it with 100% and do it with intent. Me personally, I don't have many life regrets because everything that I've attempted, I've done with 100% and I've done it with intent. And everything I've done, I've learnt from. So whether there be a bad life experience, a good life experience, I can always take something away from that and better prepare myself for next time. So I don't really see the point in doing things kind of at a 50% effort, whether that be school, university, everyday life, everyday work. Do it with intent.
Powerful. Taylor, a fun question, the personality question. If you could have 3 people at a dinner table, living past, who would be at Taylor McKeown's dinner table and why?
Oh, man. I would have David Attenborough. 1, because he's an idol, absolutely love him. 2, I would have Steve Irwin, same. Absolute legend, love him. And I have so many questions for him. And I think lastly, I'd probably have our current Prime Minister, because I would love to just give him a grilling.
I was going to jibe. Who's the current Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Sorry, bad.
Well, look, we never know when this podcast is going to air, and it could have changed by then. So I'm just going to say whoever our current Prime Minister is, I would just love to, put some ideas in their head and
put some of that intent in their actions. Taylor, so that's an interesting table. And obviously, and anyone that follows you on Instagram, which I highly recommend people jump on, follow your journey. And where can they find you just quickly on that, Taylor?
It's Tay_McKeown.
Easy.
Got it.
And we'll tag that up in the show notes. But you've got a love for wildlife. You've got a love for the ocean. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, pretty much my hobby outside of swimming is free diving. Given any opportunity, like time off swimming, I'll book travel or just everyday life around doing something in the ocean. Anytime I have time off swimming, I'll go overseas and I'll dive in all these exotic, cool locations. But if it's only a couple of days that I have off, I'll try and head out to Byron or Sunshine Coast or somewhere local that I can go and just dive. I really love it because every time you go, you see something different. The ocean always keeps you guessing. It's a beautiful place to be, and at the same time, I feel like it complements my swimming. So I'm creating this amazing lung capacity, which I hope will help me when I'm swimming. So
come Tokyo 2020.
Yeah, I'll be whole 50s underwater, no worries.
Doing the suicide turns.
Yeah.
Taylor, finish this sentence. The most important thing in life is?
There's a lot of important things. The most important thing in life is, I think, happiness, really. You got to find happiness in everything you do. Otherwise, what's the point in doing it? And you don't want to go through life living unhappily. So I would definitely say that happiness.
What drives you to work hard?
It's a really good question. I would have to say just a competitive instinct, I guess, and the need and the want to achieve great things.
Where does pressure come from?
Within yourself, within media, within the Australian public. Can be felt from multiple different sources, as I've experienced previous racing. So looking at pressure, I think, and looking forward, the next time I go to race, I'm going to learn how to handle that a bit better and learn how to control it within myself.
Taylor, finally, what mistakes are you afraid of making?
I am super afraid of stuffing up my race plan again. I've actually gone back and I've watched that 200 breaststroke so many times to relive the pain of how crap that race was, to make sure I never want to do that again. It's a horrible feeling. You touch the wall and you don't even want to turn around and look at the scoreboard to see what your time is because you know you didn't execute the race well. That's a horrible feeling, knowing that essentially a year of hard training leading up to the Olympics has been wasted. It's a lot of time wasted, and I don't think anyone likes to waste their time or effort or money or investment. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that everything I'm doing now is going to best prepare me so that doesn't happen again.
Taylor McKeown, you're an outstanding young Aussie, and all the best for the rest of this calendar year with preparations for trials and team selections, World Championships, and then obviously looking ahead as we sit here today to next year, Tokyo 2020.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I trust that you did. And if you did, then please let Taylor and myself know what it was that you enjoyed about Taylor's share-ins. You can find Taylor over on Instagram at Tay_McKeown, McKeown, and myself at Brad_beer. Do let us know what it was that you enjoyed or took away from Taylor's share-ins. Keep the podsies coming. That's simply a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying and tagging in the show on Instagram at Physical Performance Show. It's a whole lot of fun to see where the episodes are being enjoyed from and also the key learnings being taken away from each of the featured guests. A massive thanks as always to those leaving ratings and reviews over on iTunes. In particular this week, a big shout out to Captain Kyle. Captain Kyle rated the show 5 stars, commenting, "Big fan of the show. Episode 131 with Lydia Lacilla is my favourite so far. Love your work." Captain Kyle, thank you for taking the time to leave that review, and be sure to get in touch and we'll post you out a copy of my running bestseller, You Can Run Pain Free, now in its second and revised and expanded edition. Huge thanks if you have been subscribing to the show. Subscribing really is the way to help this show grow the most and get into the earbuds of more people who, just like yourself, are looking to pursue their own physical best performance. You can subscribe from wherever it is that you enjoy the show from, whatever the podcast player, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. If you've enjoyed more than 4 episodes, then I'd really appreciate if you hit subscribe. So do it now. Massive thanks as always to the 3 very good folk who make this show possible week in, week out. That is Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Olding on all things graphic design. Coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, you've asked and we're going to deliver, and that is in the form of an expert edition featuring Andrew Hall, who is a sports dietitian at the Brisbane Broncos and also the Brisbane Bullets. And we'll do a deep dive on all things injury, nutrition, performance and health. So be sure to be tuning in next week to the Physical Performance Show. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.